Welcome, Curtis. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview.
It's fun to be not too far away, but be right there with you on the Zoom call, Lauren.
Well, I'm looking forward to this. It's really exciting for people to hear your story and your message on how to take care of their family today for the unknown of tomorrow. I know you and I were introduced when a close friend of mine told me how she had a friend who needed a kidney transplant. So Curtis, with what you're comfortable, could you please share your story?
Sure. Well, I'm 46 years old, and when I was 13, I I kind of had an episode of pain in my stomach one night, and we went to the emergency room, and they did some tests, and they figured out that I had a kidney disease. It's called IgA nephropathy, and it's a
Okay.
fairly slow-moving condition that we basically my my parents when I was young, and then on my own when I was older, kept an eye on with regular visits to a nephrologist or a kidney doctor um, as I grew up. And the numbers indicated that eventually I would need dialysis or a kidney transplant. That's just the way they were heading. And
Wow.
I always felt pretty calm about it because it was moving so slowly. And since I was a little kid, I'm really close with my younger brother, and he's always said, "No problem. I'll give you a kidney." So wasn't too worried
Right.
about it. He's a pretty healthy guy. And as the numbers continued to drop, um, then I was registered for a transplant up at UCLA, and I was taking really good care of myself. I have a wife and two kids, so I've a lot to stay healthy for,
Absolutely.
and I was keeping healthy. And then we had my brother going through all the tests and being registered as a potential donor. And then eventually UCLA said, perhaps, I guess this was about 2 years ago, they said, "Oh, it's time. You need to get this transplant now.
Wow.
Why don't you have your brother finish up his test? Why hasn't your brother finished up his tests?" And I said, "Okay, I'll get him to finish up his tests." And so, a little bit of apprehension about a big surgery, but feeling pretty confident. And then while he was up doing his final tests, they told him that they had found a really, really small abnormality. And they're so careful with the health of the potential donor that they said, "You can't donate to him." And
Wow.
he was devastated. And, I was concerned for him, concerned for me. It turned out that his small abnormality was really nothing. He's fine. They're just so careful about the health of the donor. But that then we had my wife go through the process. She got rejected for a small abnormality. My cousin, he got rejected. A good friend. And so now by this point, because each person takes like a month to get rejected, now I was starting to get really nervous because I was really hoping to avoid dialysis. And
Yeah.
transplant's kind of the dream outcome for a kidney patient. And so I'd been extremely private about this for many years. Maybe besides my family, maybe two close friends knew about it. I just
Okay.
didn't feel the need to share it. I was concerned about how it might impact people, how people looked at me from a business perspective. But at this point, once four people had been rejected, it was just time to say, all right, let's just put it out there. And so in the hopes of finding a donor, we just totally put it out there.
Well, you did an amazing job. I mean, you really got the word out and you were able to find an amazing kidney donor. Actually, it seems like you had a couple people that were willing to step up to the plate for you.
Yeah, actually, the campaign was so successful. It's unbelievable to even say this, but the campaign and I got 100 people to raise their hands and say that they
Wow.
would be willing to donate a kidney. But it's they're willing to. They have the right health situation. They have the right level of family support. They can get through the testing process. It
Yeah.
a lot of people for various reasons um, dropped off the map, but the amount of people who were willing and wanted to do it was astounding. It was probably a third were people I was very close to, a third were people I knew, and a third were strangers. So it was, I've heard an interviewer ask this question of every guest on his podcast. He says, what's one experience in your life that you would never want to repeat, but that was a valuable or, experience that you are glad you had? And this for sure falls directly into that category where I would not want to repeat it, but it was just an amazing kind of view into the best of humanity and the support that people provided. And I feel very healthy and grateful.
Yeah, and you really raised awareness for this as well. I mean, do you know if there are other people because of you who have now been able to find donors?
Well, I actually have helped. I'm helping my third person right now kind of go through their campaign. There was a woman that I met after reading an article about her in the Press Telegram, the Long Beach Press Telegram, and she happened to be she wanted to go to law school, and she's from Long Beach, and she happened to have the same disease as me. So I reached out to her, and we kind of became friends, and we helped. A colleague of mine did Nate Trimmer and John Zahn from OmniBeat Marketing. They partnered with me, and they provided their services pro bono. I donated to provide some video services, and we did a campaign for her. And then she ended up getting a kidney from a total stranger who didn't even reveal her identity to her until after the transplant, just a pure altruist. And then
that's wonderful.
I helped a friend's dad who just received his kidney 2 months ago, and I'm currently helping a friend's dad kind of navigate the process. And he just launched his campaign 2 weeks ago and has had 13 people raise their hands. So it's kind of been fun being a go-to person where people could call and say, hey, my friend, my cousin, somebody else is struggling with this. Can you help them? Can you connect them with resources? There's a support group that I've really benefited from that I like to connect people with. So it has been fun to be a resource for others and try and get them through the fear and uncertainty that I was under. Oh, I thought of another local guy, my chiropractor introduced me to, that had the same disease and is from here, and I got him connected up, and he got his transplant like early in the pandemic. So
well, it sounds like you've been a mentor to many people, and I mean, look how many people you've been able to help because of this. I mean, it's really amazing.
I had a number of people who mentored me through it and through kind of very challenging times, and so it's easy, fun, rewarding to do it, and easy, fun, and rewarding. So I do it as much as I can.
Well, when you have such a positive experience as you did, now you're able to give back, and I think that's amazing. So.
Yeah,
to back up just a little bit now, I wanted to just talk about what prompted you to pursue law and the practice of estate planning.
Well, law, I just really like the intersection between kind of political science, economics, and when my college major was called Law and Society. That was at UC Santa Barbara, and I just found it interesting, and then I did well enough in school and on the entrance exam. I must have written a good enough essay that the law school I went to, Santa Clara University, gave me a full scholarship, books and tuition, so I was able to come out without any debt. And I worked at a large firm in Orange County doing litigation for a few years. It wasn't really a fit. I didn't thrive in the really large firm working on giant cases for giant firms and being a small part of a giant case. I didn't really thrive in
Okay.
that environment. And after leaving that firm, and when I was exploring other things I wanted to do, I had a brief stint with a nonprofit, and another one with a startup company. And as I was kind of exploring, I had a family friend in Seal Beach who had a small estate planning practice, and she had reached out and said, hey, you may want to partner with me on a few cases. I think you might like and be good at this type of work. And I worked with her on a handful of cases, and I found that she was right, and kind of started building my practice very slowly from that point, and looking for and seeking out mentors to help me grow in that field, and just diving into continuing education. I really liked the one-on-one aspect. I liked the connection between the financial side of estate planning, the legal side of estate planning, and the emotional. So legal, financial, emotional, interpersonal, where those connect, I like it a lot, and I think I'm reasonably good at it. And so that's the angle that I built my practice from, and that I interact with clients and their advisors. And it's been I've been practicing law for 20 years, but running my firm focused on estate planning for about 13. And that's really what I like, is financial, legal, interpersonal, and emotional. Not too different from being a real estate agent, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, it's everything kind of intersects. I mean, I agree with you. I feel like I'm part real estate agent, part social worker. And I love that. I definitely love that. So I'm really curious, once the doctors told you that you needed a transplant or that you'd have to go on dialysis, what shift occurred? Because I'm sure you probably had an estate plan. If you didn't have an estate plan before you got into this field, I'm sure once you started doing this for other people, you realized the importance of it. But what shift occurred in your personal estate plan once you realized that you needed a transplant, or that your health was not as good? Your health was shifting, and you'd either have to do that or go on dialysis.
When I started my practice, I was single and didn't own a house. And so although I was doing estate plans for others, and I think I had created a basic estate plan for myself, it just wasn't on the top of my radar. Everyone does need a plan, but the robustness of the plan depends on what stage you are in life, what's going on with you, how old you are, what's going on. In the stage I was in life in my early 30s was more living for today than living for a balance of today and tomorrow. And as I, in my mid 30s, got married, in my late 30s had my first kid, and when I turned 40 had my second kid, things obviously changed, bought a house and all that good stuff. But for my own estate plan, I thought I had it buttoned up pretty well. And many of you have heard the expression, the cobbler's kids have no shoes, which refers to that when you're busy taking care of others, making shoes for others, maybe your own kids don't have shoes on. And my estate plan had two components: one that I created myself, and one that I relied on an estate planning attorney that I respect and trust to create for me. And shortly before my surgery, which was in January of 2019, I asked my team to review my plan for me and come back to me with any questions, concerns, weaknesses, that sort of thing, so that we could address them in conjunction with making sure my wife had a really good understanding of the plan and that there weren't any holes in it. Kind of like doing a dry run. Good time to do it anytime, but especially good time before major surgery. So they came back to me and said, the part of your plan that you had the other attorney do, your assets are not in the name of that trust. And I said,
Oh,
what do you mean? I hired that attorney. She really knows what she's doing and paid her good money. And they said, well, I don't know. They're not in the trust. And I said, okay, I'm going to call her. So I called her and I said, hey, Rebecca, it looks like these assets aren't in the trust. And she said, well, did you read the letter that we sent you? And I said, I think so, yeah. And I opened up the binder and said, yeah, I see this letter. She said, look at paragraph 4. It says, make sure you know about the importance of titling the assets into the trust. And please review tab number 6 of your binder. I turned to tab 6 of my binder. It had 15 pages of further instruction. And I said, Rebecca, how am I supposed to do this? I thought I paid you to take care of it. And it was a really good opportunity to walk in my client's shoes and see that my mentality is I created the plan. I told her everything that I needed.
yeah.
But she had told me, like we had told our clients, hey, here's the 15 pages of instructions, pat you on the back, and let me know if you have any questions. And we had started walking towards another model, another way of taking care of our clients over time. And my commitment to that new model, which we call our legacy program, was really kind of clarified and illuminated at that time when I saw myself. I have all the ability. I know what I'm doing. I have a team to help me. And yet my plan wasn't in order. And it really reinforced why the plans don't often work, even though they were set up with the best of intentions at some time prior to anything happened. And you probably seen that when you work on probate properties or trust properties, that they often come with, you said being a social worker, those often come with an extra layer of challenges because there's confusion and miscommunication layered on top of grief, which is just a recipe for great challenges.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Thank you for that information. I think it's really important for people to understand that this is probably not a one-time effort, and it is important to read everything that your estate planning attorney has laid out for you.
And I'll clarify a little bit, and I'll be a little even more firm. It's not a one-time effort. It's not gonna work if it is. The analogy I draw is if you have a really good financial planner and you go to them and you're 46 years old like myself and you have 2 kids who are 5 and 9, and they really talk to you and really think through, and you go back and forth and you create an excellent financial plan that kind of handles things for today, lets you see out into the future, and it's a great financial plan. There's no way that it still works X number of years from now.
Absolutely.
Laws will change, your assets will change, your relationships will change, your goals will change. And society has done a great job of telling us all, we need a plan. We need an estate plan, probably a trust. But it's done a great job of telling us, you need to go to the dentist, okay? But society has drilled into our head a great job of, you got to go to the dentist twice a year. But it just, in our state, with respect to estate plan, it's just drilled in us, you need an estate plan. It doesn't say like what we believe, which is you need an ongoing relationship with your estate planning attorney so that the plan actually works. That's what we believe and what we've seen. Working back from the back end, when does the estate plan count? When does it need to work? When something happens.
Absolutely. So when, so you said you should have an ongoing relationship with your estate planning attorney. I mean, you're not in my house. I'm not seeing you on a daily basis. So when should people consider modifying? Is it an age thing? Is it based on years? Is it when the tax laws change? I mean, you mentioned this legacy program. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah. So do you mind if I share a couple slides? I think they
Oh, that would be great.
they kind of really bring home the message. Let me. My firm tagline is purposeful estate planning for the millionaire next door. The Millionaire Next Door is a great book from the 90s that that talks about kind of a typical millionaire in this country, that they don't look like you think they look, and they're typically they're often a small they own a small unglamorous business, or they're a small real estate investor. They're just someone who thoughtfully saves, lives beneath their means, invests in good professional advice, and that's kind of my typical client. And so, just walking through a couple of these slides, purposeful planning is the idea. It's grandiose. The concept is grandiose, but we try and make it practical. The idea is that the plan that is created really ends up being an embodiment of the dreams, visions, and hopes of the creator of the plan, and that it enables the beneficiaries someday of the plan to kind of realize whatever the dreams the creator of the plan had, often parents and kids, for them, without kind of putting shackles on them and without giving them entitlement. That's kind of the big picture idea. People aren't necessarily ready for that on day one. That's kind of part of why I ideally like to have a relationship over time. But if we are thinking at too base of a level, just I want to avoid probate, we don't get anywhere near that, and the family doesn't understand the vision of what has been created, and they aren't necessarily as likely to embody the dreams, the hopes, that sort of thing. So that's the very big picture. But what people want to come in and do is just say, can I please have some documents? I know probate is bad and I need a trust. So can I have the easy button of whatever it is you do? I see the diplomas on the wall. You were highly recommended, but I don't necessarily, I have other things to do. I don't need to talk about this all day. And I understand that mentality. I have it in other aspects of my life. But when clients have that mentality and I'm not able to shake them out of it, or they just want to do something for the lowest cost possible, what that ends up looking like is the traditional form of estate planning. And they end up kind of seeing me as a legal magician. Okay, put the right words, put the right documents into the trust, give it to me in a magic binder. I want a trust, not a will. And go ahead, Curtis. I see the diploma on the wall. You seem like a nice guy. You seem like a smart guy. Abracadabra, make it happen. Everything go to my loved ones, nice and easy. No taxes, no court, no fuss. Whenever something happens to me, whether it's tomorrow or 50 years from now. And I wish I could do that, or certainly things would be a lot easier if I could, but that's just not how it works. Yeah. And so we need to explain that to clients so that they can make an informed choice. So the problem when clients have this mentality of kind of the easy button or the magic documents is it then transmits to their kids or loved ones, so that when something happens and the kids come in, or maybe they don't come in, they just see you, we need to sell the house, they expect and understand that mom and dad told me that they created a trust, they invested good money, whether it was with me or someone else, they did what they were supposed to do, Curtis. So where's the easy button so I can push it and Lauren can sell the house the next day, or the financial advisor can send the money. And they know that their parents created a trust and that their parents had the best wishes at heart, but that the parents didn't explain to the kids, because perhaps the attorney didn't really fully explain to the parents that it's not quite that easy. And I have to take responsibility and admit that in the early part of my practice, I didn't grab my clients by the collar and shake them enough. I kind of a little bit more went with the flow. Yes, we will do the right plan. But then I told them, you'll just need to keep checking in with me. Keep checking in every few years. We'll do seminars. We'll do workshops. I'll send in newsletters. And people would nod along and agree. But then once the plan was done, they were like, woof, thank goodness that is checked off the list. It's been a monkey on my back for many years. Yes, if something huge comes up in our life, we're glad to be able to contact you, Curtis. But they don't. They don't, because it's not on their mind and it's going to cost money. And so I got asked to give a presentation for a financial planning group at the end of last year. And the topic was estate planning war stories. And I said, what do you want me to talk about? And they said, you know, like when people missed a strategy that could have saved them a lot of money or created a fight. And I said, let me think about it and get back to you. And I got back to him and I said, you know, I don't have that many exciting, like movie-like war stories. Oh, if they would have done strategy ABC, they could have saved $1 million. I don't have those as much. What I have is every week, a loved one coming into my office, either with a plan that we did or a plan that someone else did, and saying, push the easy button for me, make it work. And I know my parents chose the trust, so it shouldn't cost that much and it shouldn't be that bad. And I'll look and I'll say, ooh, they haven't updated this for 9 years. They got these 4 assets since we last did it. These things changed. One of the children is having problems, and ooh, it's not going to work like they intended. And I'm really delivering bad news, and it's very painful. And that happens, shockingly, like 85 to 90% of the time.
Wow.
It's not that the plan was wrong when it was created. It's that human nature being what it is, and kind of my experience over the 12 years of a practice is, even with a lot of outreach from the attorney, and many attorneys don't do that outreach, only certain clients will follow up to make changes, and only when it's a dramatic change. When dramatic change happens for certain clients, many of them, it just, how different could it be? We still have the same 2 kids. Even when I send out newsletters, oh, this law changed, this law changed. And so I told you the story about the cobbler's kids. When it comes down to the bottom line, we grade the success of the plan on 4 criteria. Could the trustee smoothly and quickly take control of all assets? You know that from when you want to sell the house. Okay, was it in the trust? Who's the seller? Who has the right to sign the documents? Sometimes it's exactly where it should be, and other times it's not. Anything you want to say about that?
Well, I mean, just have a great estate planning attorney, because if you do, then everything's going to hopefully align. And once I have the trust documents, it makes it easy for me to sell the house. And then, you know, you can dispose of the asset and, you know, move on with your life. If everything's not in place and we don't have the proper trust documents to give to escrow, then, you know, we need to backpedal and start doing all those things behind the scenes. And it may take months to get everything situated in the right way in order to be able to sell the house.
Has it ever happened, Lauren, that you've wanted to sell a house and the original owners of the house had a trust, but the property was no longer titled in the name of the trust? Has that ever happened to you?
You know, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, I think there was a time when, you know, they refinanced.
That's a common culprit, yes.
And when they refinanced, you know, for some reason, it didn't get put back in the trust.
That's very common.
And so it was, you know, it was not in the trust and it was problematic. So
they have to go to court to ask the judge to allow it to be back in the trust?
They did. They did. And
that's a petition that does take at least a few months.
Exactly.
So,
And
and
it's
then,
not a fun situation
no,
as the realtor or as the heir or even as the attorney. Although I hear you make more money when you have to go to court. So, you know, there's a
I,
plus side.
no, it's not a plus because I really don't like it.
You don't like
I
going to
don't like
court for
going to
that?
court. It's very inefficient. It's very inefficient. The courts are now backed up
Oh yeah,
like
with COVID,
crazy.
absolutely.
Um, and I don't like it because the clients don't like it.
Yeah.
And I'm all about the good feelings and
Yeah.
the positive vibes. And so I consider it my job for us not to go to court unless there's a good reason to, like it's a benefit to the family. And so um, any anything that is litigation, court related, that's not for me. I usually refer that to a trusted colleague. So your example is a perfect reason that that plan would not be graded an A because the trustee could not take control of the asset. They couldn't sell the house. The beneficiaries were upset. It's just not what the parents had in mind. Number two, both spouses, the beneficiaries and the trustee being kind of the manager of the situation, that they all understand the plan. Oh, one person's going to be the trustee and one person is just going to be the beneficiary. What does that mean? What does that look like in real life? Have we had a meeting about it? Can we talk about it? Typically, no. In traditional estate planning, it's you create the plan and sometimes the parents might talk to their kids about it and typically they don't. If we have understanding of the plan between both spouses, the beneficiaries and the trustee, then that leads to minimization of conflict. When they don't understand or when there's misunderstanding, the conflict happens and it just ruins everything that was built as it impacts the relationship. The fourth one, that we minimized all types of taxes and fees, that's probably the easiest one because everyone's kind of really focused on it. And it's also easy if there's something that could have been done better there, it's easier to go back and fix that. The hardest ones to go back and fix are the understanding of the plan and the minimization of the conflict. Trust litigation, which I mentioned I don't do, is one of the fastest growing and most lucrative fields of law. And you don't want your family to contribute to that statistic. It's just devastating, very, very expensive. And so how we address that, we kind of say, okay, so here's the 4 things that need to be in place at the end if something happens. And we were seeing that the plans that we drafted, at first we just thought it was plans that other attorneys drafted. And then we started seeing our own plans have some of these same challenges. And we realized that they needed more ingredients. So we, on our legacy program, take responsibility up front.
Okay.
And then with the client on an ongoing basis, something like they refi the house, they call us and say, we refinanced the house. Can you make sure everything's right? Sure, no problem. They're already paying us an annual fee to do that, so there's no barrier for them to contact
you.
us. So upfront and on an ongoing basis. Then we also facilitate family meetings upfront and over time. I was talking with a friend yesterday. Her daughters are 18 and 21. And I said, they're probably ready for a very light family meeting. Here's the trust. Here's what it means. Here's who's in charge till you're 30. Do you have any questions? And then 5 or 10 years from now, when they're ready to take more authority if something happens to their parents, they're ready for a different type of family meeting. Oh, here's how it would actually work. Are you interested? And if they don't show any interest, then maybe it's time for the parents to reconsider. If they say, I don't want to deal with it. Well, okay, we need someone who's going to deal with it.
Yeah, so then who would deal with that? Like a fiduciary or someone would you recommend, or another family friend?
The more likely I am to recommend a fiduciary, a private fiduciary or corporate fiduciary, would be when there's any concerns about the adult kid's ability to manage money, get along with each other, or to have an aptitude or interest for running the trust. When the kids are extremely mature, extremely on top of things financially. They're all being treated equally or the exact same. They get along. That's when I lean more towards keeping it in the family. But if we're asking brother to manage the money for sister, because sister's not too good with money, then it goes towards a private fiduciary. And I didn't mention one of the other reasons that I got into estate planning was a kind of a traumatic family experience with my grandparents and the carrying out of their plan, which there was not sufficient communication between them, my dad and his sister. And so a tremendous amount of family upheaval and strife, and yet the plan had been drafted in a technically sound way. So kind of exploring that and trying to understand why that had gone so wrong was a big motivator to get into this field. So we facilitate the family meetings with other trusted advisors as appropriate. We help the clients with a professional writer. We do a legacy letter to talk about some of those more high-minded concepts about the purpose. I'll share in a moment a story I learned from my parents from their legacy letter just last year, which was awesome. And then we update the plan in alignment with changes in the law, changes in their life, changes that the CPA might recommend, the financial advisor, that we're all on the same page, communicating together. So that's kind of what we think of as a improvement to the traditional estate planning process. And hopefully that gives a little bit of color into what we believe is important beyond getting the right documents. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like, did you put in place this legacy in the last couple of years, ever since everything happened with your transplant? It sounds like that's what you're doing different today, and that's how your approach may be different today with clients than before your transplant, that you want this ongoing program, or are there other things as well?
Well, I saw after a few years in my practice that, there was something wrong with the traditional model of, here's the plan, here's it is in the binder, good luck, and let me know if you need anything, we're here for you.
Right.
Genuine, sincere way of saying that. And so that's when we started doing the workshops, the letters with changes in the law, the newsletters, and then that didn't move the needle, so we kept looking. And then we tried saying, let's offer complimentary 3-year reviews where clients would come in, sit down, talk about the plan. We would do that on a complimentary basis. And then if changes needed to be made, then we would charge for those. And that seemed like a great opportunity to me, but clients did not take advantage of that. And so we offered kind of one round of that, one set of 3-year reviews, and that it didn't work. Like maybe 10-15% of the clients took advantage of that. And so we had to keep searching, and I was looking for something that was going to make it work. This is my life's professional work, and if I draft a great plan but it doesn't work when it counts,
then what good is it?
What good is it? How can I hold my head up high? How can I talk to the families? And I read a book by an author who has a law firm in Boston, Massachusetts, called Vinnie Bonazzoli. And he talked about how he went through this same process. It was like reading my own book. He did the same thing. He tried the complimentary reviews, all these things. And he found that the only way that he could successfully make the plans work to take care of the families when it counted was by having an ongoing relationship. And so the book talked about how he developed that. And so I traveled and hired him to coach us. And my team and I traveled to Florida, where he was conducting trainings. We traveled there for a few times every quarter. And I continue to do monthly calls with him. And we were just getting the ball rolling on this program in the fall of 2018, with some uncertainty on how it'd be received by clients. And then when I mentioned that story about my own plan and then having my surgery, that's when I came back from my surgery, that's when we really committed to it. So a little over a year ago, we currently have 45 families on the legacy program, and including my family, and they take really good care of me, what my team does, my parents, my brother, my kidney donor. My kidney donor, I could have just done a plan for, but that's not what I, felt most comfortable, most secure. It's like, I need this relationship. I need to take care of you and your family for life. And so she just got on the program a few months ago. And
well, that's definitely the right thing to do. I mean, they took care of you, and now you'll take care of them and their family. And so that kind of leads into the question, when someone comes into your office for that first meeting, what should they do to prepare? What information should they have to ensure that it's a productive conversation? Because, people don't like spending a whole lot of time doing this, as you mentioned. So kind of let's get to the point. What do they need to do to prepare for that conversation?
I would say that if it's, let's assume that it's their first time creating a plan. Many of my clients, they created kind of a starter plan a number of years back, and they know, or they've been counseled by an advisor, or they've asked for a referral because they know they need an updated or more robust plan. But let's assume for the moment it's their first time ever creating a plan, and that they know someone told them, you need a plan, and they're responsible, forward-thinking people, so they want to create a plan. I would say that if they're working with our office at Kaiser Law Group, the first thing that I would want them to understand is that it's not going to be a magic documents, easy button process. They have to, Lauren, I have to get them to the point where they can feel and understand. If fun is not the word, it's not going to be fun. We can have fun and laugh and joke about mortality a little bit while we're doing it, but they have to see that there's actual real value in what we're going to create. Because if it's just checking the box to have documents, they could do it online. They could do it for a low-cost provider for $400 in the newspaper, and they will have documents. These days, documents are free. You can get the documents for free on the internet. So if they want a human internet, that's probably not me. So I would need, through my materials, through talking with my team, through talking with me, to see if they're at a place in life that they're ready to kind of accept that there's going to be value in this process beyond the documents. And so
someone who really wants an estate plan that works.
Yes. If they're just checking the box and they need to leave as soon as possible, I don't blame them. It's just that they're not ready for the value that I'm going to provide to their family. Like I've been trading phone calls with someone who's referred to me, who's in their late 20s and just bought their first house and wants a plan. And if they're not ready for anything more than kind of checking the box and hitting the easy button, I understand. I was 28. I wasn't ready. In fact, the fact that they're even thinking about this at the age of 28 is impressive.
It is impressive.
It is impressive. Most of my clients are in their 50s. I have some in their 30s. But in your 30s, to invest, when you're so busy, to invest the time and money into developing a great plan, you have to be a really mature, forward-thinking person. And if you're not there yet, I don't blame you, because like I told you when I was 33, I wasn't there yet either. Does that help at all, Lauren?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how do you ensure your clients loved ones receive their assets after they die? I mean, I know we've got this great plan, right? But I mean, the bottom line is, we want to make sure that we're able to get the money in the easiest way
Mm-hmm.
after, you know, somebody passes. And obviously it's an emotional time as well. So, you know, there's a lot people are dealing with.
It all starts with kind of the nuts and bolts of what we call asset alignment, which is here's your assets and here's the plan. Do the assets line up with the plan? When we talked about your client that they had done the refi, they had a plan that said what it was supposed to say.
Yeah.
But the asset was not aligned with it. So we kind of call the plan a treasure chest, and that asset should have been inside the treasure chest. Instead, it was kind of laying on the beach somewhere. They had to go get the judge to help them find it on the beach. So where it first starts is with asset alignment.
Okay.
For each asset, does it align with the plan? If Lauren's retirement asset says that her primary beneficiary is her husband, and somehow on the records of the retirement custodian, that account was set up before you had kids and there's no backup beneficiary, or your backup beneficiary is your kids and their ages 3, 5, and 7.
Yeah.
That does not line up with the plan, which says, hey, we don't want those little kids to manage their own money until they're 30. So if the plan says we don't want them to manage it till they're 30, but the asset says, well, if my husband and I are gone, give it to the kids, then the family will have to go to court to set up a guardianship. The kids will get the money when they're 18. So we need the plan to line up with the assets, and the assets that people have when they create the plan are not the assets that they have when the plan needs to work.
Well, yeah, hopefully they have a lot more assets by the time the plan actually needs to work. And
yes.
And you know, as humans, we're just filled with flaws, and I know this can create dysfunction in families. You've mentioned a couple things that you can do. You know, if you have to, you can, you know, have a fiduciary or someone. But what else? Is there something else that you can do as an attorney to reduce the conflict and confusion among the family members after a loved one dies?
Definitely. I think, first of all, treating people as equally as possible. That doesn't mean treating them the same, but treating them equally in the sense that, let's say there's a family that has 2 kids, one adult child is very successful financially and otherwise, and the other child has had many struggles. They don't do well financially. They haven't found their stride. And so sometimes an instinct of the parents is, well, the one child is doing great financially. They don't really need these funds. I'm going to give 3/4 to the one that's struggling. The other one doesn't really need it. That successful child, now in the middle of their grief, feels that they're being punished for their hard work and success. So I might counsel saying, let's treat them equally, but let's have more structure for the child who is struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
Or having a family meeting, maybe one child at a time, and saying to the more successful child, this is how we're thinking of setting up the plan, you know, equally for you and your sibling who's struggling a little bit. You know, we're going to make the ultimate decision on the plan, but we're curious if you have a perspective, because we're just open to hearing it. And what that would give the successful one an opportunity to do, which I've seen happen sometimes, is they say, oh, I don't really need the money. Why don't you give more of it or all of it to my sibling? Well, the parents don't always know. They think, but they haven't had a direct conversation about it, because it's a hard conversation to have.
It is a hard conversation.
Sometimes I can help facilitate that in the family meeting. I really encourage the family to try and have the difficult conversations, like, we're going to give one child unlimited access to the money and the other it's going to be more structured. That's like my grandparents. It was equal to the 2 kids, but my dad was given his with no strings, and there were protective strings for her sister. and they never told her because they didn't want to upset her. So in the midst of her grief, her deep, deep grief, her confusion, her surprise, that, you know, feeling of distrust and feeling of this betrayal, who's left for her to be angry at? Her parents aren't there. So she turns to the person who's running the show, her brother. And that's the last thing in the world that my grandparents would have wanted. And again, the plan was drafted by a well-regarded firm, technically sound, but not very thoughtful from interpersonal, emotional perspective. So I would really encourage the creators of the plan to have the tough decision and try and treat people equally, but not the same.
I think that's a great idea, to have the communication while everyone is still here.
And healthy, not like a deathbed conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're right. It's really, really important, because everyone isn't on an equal playing field. There are some siblings that will be having more trouble in life than others. And if you can have those conversations, those hard conversations, while everyone's still alive, there will be less anger and frustration towards the siblings later on. And, you know, it's hard enough for siblings to get along in today's day and age. You don't want to have that anger, and
you throw money and grief
Yeah.
and lack of communication is
not a good combination.
That's pretty volatile. And you've probably seen it, and you let me know if you have, Lauren, in your work, when siblings are deciding what to do with family property. You know, there's all sorts of things that can be done. That some of the siblings can hold on to it and rent it out and keep the low property tax basis. They can sell it. But have you ever seen a situation where they get along or don't get along? And that can be tough.
Well, a lot of times, by the time it gets to me, there's usually one person that is in charge. So that one person's been designated. And usually I'm dealing with the one person. There are usually other heirs behind the scenes, but I don't always have communication with them. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while I do. And, you know, we also can have family meetings, you know, together with them to make sure that, you know, they're on the same page. But a lot of times I am just dealing with one person. So that does make it a little bit easier for me. So I
usually recommend that there be a single trustee, with the idea that if everyone's getting along, the trustee will be communicating and collaborating with the other beneficiaries. And if everyone's not getting along, we do want the buck to stop with one person rather than have two people divided and have to go to court to figure it out. But
absolutely, because it's hard enough, you know, when you're in the middle of negotiations on the property, somebody has to have the final say with which offer to choose, you know, and what's best for the family. So thank you so much for all this information. It's been great. You know, is there something that sets you apart from estate planning attorneys? Something that, you know, makes you unique, that you do differently than other estate planning attorneys?
I'll try and mention a couple, and we'll see if they resonate. I know one is that our process when we're creating a plan, and I think this may kind of just give a flavor of kind of how we work and communicate. Mm-hmm. Most estate planning attorneys, when creating a plan, will take one of two paths to get to the finish line of completing the plan with the clients. And one path is to have the initial meeting, talk with them at the initial meeting, get the details, figure it out, and then say, great, come back in 3 weeks. We'll mm-hmm. go over the plan. You'll sign it. You'll be good to go. That's one approach. And that approach, I feel, gosh, we kind of just you kind of just go through that pretty quick, and the clients don't have any chance to reflect, and they're just kind of signing if you spelled their kid's name right the next time. The other approach, I think, takes it a little too far in the other direction, where they have that same conversation, and then the attorneys send out drafts of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And these drafts are 60 pages of documents, and they're asking the clients to say, great, look it over and let me know if everything looks okay. And I just don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right, because other than my most detail-oriented clients who love that challenge, maybe 10% of them, for everyone else, that's just putting the burden back on them. And so what we do is we have the conversation with the client, whether that takes place over 1 or 2 meetings. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we send them a plain English 1 to 2 page summary of the plan that says, hey, here's what we heard. Here's what we're thinking. Are we on the same page? And then they'll confirm yes or no. And it's in English, not in legalese. And then when we get to the signing of the plan, we're going through the actual plan, but they've gotten the understanding from a more plain English point of view. We actually don't send out the plan. We think it does a disservice. We do for our traditional clients who are not going on the legacy plan. We say, we want you to get to the finish line. We want you to sign once you have the basic understanding. Mm-hmm. If you want to go deep after we have the plan in place and read every word, we'll keep a 30-day window open for you. And if you have any questions or changes, we'll make them at no charge. Because what we don't want to do is send them the 70-page plan and then kind of call, did you finish reading it? No, give me another week. Did you finish reading it? No, give me another week. So I know it's like you telling a client to walk through the escrow instructions or the purchase agreement on their own. It's
a lot of documents.
Yeah, that's not fair. So I would say that spirit, that vibe, and then the legacy program, which is really kind of our not just premier offering, but it's really kind of what we most believe in, what we really hope our clients will do. You know, if we have a client who's just getting started, they just got a house, they don't have complicated assets, they have young kids, we'd be happy to do a solid traditional plan for them. And then what we tell them is, hey, 5-10 years from now, you probably should consider being on the legacy program so we could take care of you.
Absolutely.
But, you know, at that early stage in their lives, maybe, you know, just putting the basics in place is really all they are comfortable with at that point.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your willingness to be vulnerable and to share your personal story. You made a really tough topic easy to talk about. Please share your information with our viewers so they know how to get in touch with you.
Perfect. So again, my name is Curtis Kaiser. Our law firm is called Kaiser Law Group. We're located in Long Beach, not too far from Cal State Long Beach on the corner of PCH and Clark. Our website is www.kaiserlg, as in law group, kaiserlg.com. And our phone number is 562-343-2843. And this is really fun. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And I love, Lauren, how you kind of just dove right in there on the super personal stuff. You asked me in advance, which I appreciate, but you know, I had such a wonderful experience and such a positive experience after being so scared to open up about it at all. Finally kind of just almost being forced to just lay it on the table, and only good things happened as a result of it. So I appreciate you asking and letting me share, and being a great partner to work with. And we've had the chance to work together on a number of projects with our clients who've needed to figure out what to do with the property or sell the property. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard. And so appreciate being able to have this open dialogue here. And then as we work together and you work with the different team members in our firm. Well,
your team has been amazing to work with. I mean, everyone's so personable, and your clients really love, your whole team, not just you, but, everyone on your team is
I can't
really
do it by
amazing.
myself. I can't do it by myself. Yeah.
You can't?
No.
Oh gosh, I
cannot.
thought you could do everything.
No.
So,
No. So
well,
thank you, Lauren.
this has been